Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Tune into the madness on the airwaves. Dive into chaos where the wild ones rave. Common X bringing fire every day. Raise your voice, let the spirit sway. Legendary stories, whispers in the dark. Benny and the crew igniting sparks. From the underground we rise to the skies, unleashing truth in a world of lies. Common X screams breaking through the night. Open your mind, let your soul ignite. Ride the tempest, feel the power within. Common X, the journey begins.
All right, guys, welcome to Common X Podcast, episode 18 with Jared and Ian. We have a special guest for you today. We have the legend himself, Sid Griffin. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Good. I see you got your guitar out. I was just listening to your song, Why I Play Guitar, too. That's kind of crazy that you showed up with the guitar, man. That's awesome. So tell us about your new album, The Journey from Grape to Raisin.
I'll put it away so we can talk. Go on, guys.
It's all good.
There's a case right here. You've got to start at breakfast if you want to have your 12-string in tune by dinner.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work to tune.
They really are a nightmare to tune, and I've gotten over the years. I've really learned a lot about the 12-string, and I just love it to pieces. Roger McGuinn and Lead Belly and anybody that plays one is someone I admire, because I mean they're just difficult, but they're just so great at the same time. So
you can't beat that sound either, for sure.
You can't beat the sound, but of course the downside is, gentlemen, Ian, if they're out of tune, it's like
yeah,
out of tune 12-string is enough to I don't know what, make you rethink your life.
Right.
Nails on the chalkboard.
Yeah, his fingernails on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us more about this. Tell us about this album you just released, The Journey from Grape to Raisin. You sent it to me. It's great. Love the artwork. I've got the LP coming in the turquoise vinyl as well.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool, man.
What happened was about the Long Ryders had broken up, and around, I don't know what, 2004, we got offers to do a Long Ryders tour, and I was already with this band, the Cole Porters. We were shifting into playing bluegrass. There's a mandolin in that blue case I'm pointing to right there in that chair. That's a mandolin. And so I'm kind of thinking, well, I won't play much rock and roll anymore. And the 2004 thing was like throwing a pebble in the pond. It's perfectly smooth waters, and it just created a ripple effect that went on and on and on, generated more and more. And the next thing I knew, we were, some more offers came in, and we turned down a lot of them because the Long Ryders problem was we had 4 guys and no one lived in the same town, not even the same state. I live in Europe, 3 guys across the United States. So long story short is, I guess around 2014, a little over 10 years ago, the tour offers were so wonderful that we couldn't turn them down. I mean, it's basically you're being paid, Jared, Ian, to go out and have fun with your friends, and you can't whoop that. That's just the greatest. So I had the Long Ryders in the way. So I made an album in 2014 or 2015 and put it out called The Trick Is to Breathe, and I'm really proud of it. But the reason I didn't put out a new album is the Long Ryders took up my musical time, and then I was playing bluegrass, and I just didn't have time. So I went 10 years between solo albums. And finally, at some kind of folk festival somewhere in like Switzerland or something, somebody said, you really got to be a little more aggressive on your solo career, because we've heard some of these songs like 6 years ago at this same festival. I was like, ooh. So, I had the new album, and it's Label 51, which is Bill Hine and a bunch of amazingly talented American people who I knew in the old days, so they didn't know them well. They were all in the way that there was the Paisley Underground of bands and the roots rock scene with the Blasters and Los Lobos in LA that we were kind of part of both. They were all executives back in the day. And so in the way that they didn't want to leave the record industry and I didn't want to stop playing, they formed it late in the day, late in their careers, they formed a new record label. And they've got Steve Wynn and they've got the Rain Parade. And they're just about to put out a new album by Vicki Peterson with her husband. Vicki Peterson, if you don't know, was in the Bangles and the main guitar player in the Bangles. And so it's kind of crazy. In the autumn of my years, I've had a real resurgence of interest, and I could go out and play a lot more, but I really needed a solo record. So I went to Nashville and cut the journey from Grape to Raisin about 18 months ago, and here we are.
Wow. Yeah, and it's incredible. You seem to be able to have that. You have that ability to draw inspiration from a lot of places, and I really like kind of the you got the alt country, the kind of bluegrass blues. I even feel some jazz in there. What was there any certain inspirations as far as like the detail of this album?
Well, the album before is the one I'm also proud of called "The Trick Is to Breathe." This is a CD, folks. I haven't shrunk an LP, and I'm very proud of it. But it was very bluegrassy. So when I'm called to play a festival as a solo, or maybe I'll take one of the gang, my bluegrass band as a duo, it didn't really. The songs didn't really make any sense in that context. They're sort of bluegrass songs that need a slight small ensemble, and I needed songs I could play on my own. So while I have a band on the journey from Grape to Raisin, the Blue album I keep holding up, it's not the songs are such that I can play them on my own. And as for the multiplicity of musical influences, I think it's age. When I was younger, I had real blinders on, and things like punk were really authentic, and roots rock was really authentic. And then you get older, and a lot of things open up. My dad took me to see Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours when I was over 50 years ago. We went to see Ernest Tubb, and I didn't get it. I had pretty long hair, and I didn't dislike it, but I didn't get it. And now I realize little gigs like that made me musically, and they changed the way I thought about things. And so it's just a different world. I mean, I saw Miles Davis on a whim in Los Angeles, and I just thought, I've heard about him, I know who he is, I'll go. He was unbelievable. And then the next thing you know, you're at a Cannonball Adderley jazz gig at a jazz club. But when I was I'm a long-winded answer, but when you're a kid, you have these blinders on. When you're 15, you like heavy metal and you don't like this, or you like maybe bluegrass and you don't like rock and roll. But that goes when you get older. That just goes. It's gone. So everything can come in that you find is valid, and it's not so much that is it bluegrass or is it rock and roll or is it punk or is it jazz. That kind of goes out the window. Is it good? Is the guy singing or the woman singing or whoever's playing, do they have something to say? And in that is where I get my music now. Does the artist have something to say?
Right. Huh. So speaking of age, talk about being young and having blinders and all of that. What was it like to tour back then as opposed to now? Because you're still touring. You have an upcoming tour, right?
I'm going out with Peter Case in May 4th, March 4th is the first gig in Nashville, Tennessee at the Bluebird Cafe, and it ends in Decatur, Georgia on, I think, the 22nd. It's outside of Atlanta, March 22nd. And I love touring so much. It's really a part of me. And I go, I'd say every other night, if not every other night, every third night, someone shows up from my past that wants to see me play. So you have besides the people that are in the folk club or wherever you are, I have old friends show up when I'm in the area, people that I didn't know lived in Idaho or wherever, they're there at the gig, and that's a blessing. And the other thing is, it's a very good question you asked. I was talking to the guys a few years ago, and we were thinking, when we went out in the 80s, when the Bangles went out touring in the 80s, or the Replacements with, Paul Westerberg or whomever went out in the 80s, you were more or less touring the way Buddy Holly and the Crickets toured. And they were more or less touring the way Glenn Miller toured in the 30s. By that, I mean, you got, once you left the hotel where you had a phone and you could call ahead for the gig, no one had a phone or anything. So
Right. There's
many
no
more.
texting.
Many mornings, the tour manager say, "Be in the lobby at 7:30. We'll leave it at 8." And then he wouldn't be down until 8:30 because he's trying to advance the next gig or the 2 days later gig. And also, like the Glenn Miller Band or Buddy Holly when he had the horrible plane crash, uh, we'd go by a bank of telephones. Like I remember once in Minnesota, I don't know why, on this rural road, gentlemen, there were 17 payphones in a row. And I have no idea why on a state road of 2 lanes in the middle of nowhere, there wasn't like a factory or anything around there. There were 17 payphones in a row. And we had, I think, 4 guys in the crew and 4 guys in the we had 2 trucks, a van and a truck, and we all were screaming, "Pull over!" So we pulled over, and the next truck pulled over, and everybody ran to a phone because you could make a phone call, and so and
That's a lot of phones in the middle of nowhere.
17, and we all counted. Why are there 17 phones right by 1 identical phones in the middle of nowhere? And
The underground alien base.
and now
That's wild.
if the guy says get in the lobby at 7:30, we leave, and he can forward the next gig on his cell phone or his laptop. So it was very primitive relative to today, very primitive. I remember in 1985, we were doing really well in Europe, and the BBC had Jeeps. They don't have them anymore. They had these Jeep-like, economy cars, and the BBC, each one of those Jeeps had an international phone in it. So the guy driving me around Manchester, Tony Michaelides, DJ, said, "Hey, you want to call anybody?" And I called my parents, and they weren't in. They wouldn't, And I called the guys back in L.A. I lived in this house with a bunch of musicians and roadies, and no one was home, which broke my heart because in those days, an international phone call for free in a car was a big deal. But now with your smartphone, it's no big deal at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing how technology's progressed in that short amount of time.
It's so ahead of its, I can't tell you how many times the band was in the lobby waiting, and the road manager, one of our main road managers, Mark Botting, later worked for the Black Crowes for years and years and years. Wow. And he later worked for Kevin Costner, because Kevin Costner, like a lot of guys, is a singer on the side. It's not where he gets his money, but he does it like Kiefer Sutherland does it. Bruce Willis was doing it. And he was in the Kevin Costner. He was the road manager for Kevin Costner. And anyway, we'd be in the lobby waiting for him, and he'd be trying to advance the gigs. And now it's just you get in the car and go. It's a different world, guys. I mean, a different world.
So has the crowd changed then? The audience?
Well, it's funny. They're coming back now because the Von Griffin theory, one of my booking agents, Chris Metzler, and I were talking yesterday. He'll be pleased to be mentioned in the podcast. He knows you guys. He'll be mentioned. Chris Metzler. We were talking about when you're young, everybody can go out. They're high school, they're university, they've got their first job, they're in their 20s, whatever. And somewhere sort of mid to late 30s, it thins because people have kids, they have a marriage. Mm-hmm. And now when we go out, all the people that saw us in the old days come back. I can't tell you how many people have come back to see the Long Riders play, or me personally, and they bring their sons or daughters or whatever. I mean, it's just incredible because now they have some free time and they have some disposable income. There's a fallow period, and Chris and I were talking, and he agrees. It's because they're raising families and they've got jobs. But now that audience is coming back. It's just incredible. And I can't. So many people have brought their kids. This is my daughter Daisy. She's 22, or this is Tom. Oh, Tom, I remember you was a little baby boy. Well, I'm 27 now, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's we've expanded the audience in a generational way. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's huge. Can you tell me a little bit more about your creative process? So, I don't know why, and I think I've mentioned it to you before. I don't know why, but the last 10 seconds of life kind of hit me, man. You know what I mean? Like your writing process. Obviously, you're an incredible writer. We'll inform the audience more on that here in a second. But like, where do you draw an inspiration for a song like that?
got from my phone. Someone somewhere was calling me. I was at the wheel and I could not see. A deer stood in the road, his stance so big, so bold. I swerved hard right then rode on the shoulder sliding slow. Guardrail on my right, the wheel in my hand so tight. Turning towards my skid, I thought just as I did, this is the last 10 seconds of life. This is the last 10 seconds of life. What do people say about me when I'm long gone, my soul set free? This is the last 10 seconds of life. This is the last 10 seconds of life. What's the last thing I said to my wife when I left our bed? Did I tell my kids goodbye? And did they laugh or did they cry? Sliding toward an exit ramp, through darkness, rain, through cold and damp. Headlines blurred the angled dash, a white line stirred as I went past. I pumped my brakes, I heard my tires grab the asphalt. Was I a liar who told my friend I'd pay him soon? Who told my friends I'd be back by noon? This is the last 10 seconds of life. This is the last 10 seconds of life. Now, baby, when you hear this verse, know the night I left I cursed fate for not letting me watch my children grow up and worse. Me leaving you so soon. Under this night, under this moon, you were the only girl I ever loved. A warm hand inside my glove, the only one meant for me. A warm hand inside my...
That actually is that one. Some of my stuff's comes out of the air, but in that one, that was a true story. There was a guy I went to high school with, was driving back in Kentucky, and I got his job at this firm moving pianos the next year when I was struggling, and he was a piano mover the year before me, and because we were friends, he was on this place called River Road, which runs parallel to the Ohio River in northern Kentucky. And a deer ran into the middle of the highway, and he hit it. And he was struggling to keep control of his vehicle so he didn't kill himself. And it was just an image, and it messed him up because, hitting a deer, that's a sizable animal. They weigh a lot. Yeah. He accidentally killed a beautiful mammal, and it really messed the guy up. I'm not going to say his name, but I dang well know it. I went to high school with him. And I never forgot him telling me that when I got the job. He said, you got to be careful because he just raced in front of me, just raced from some wooded area, obviously, raced in front. And I hit it. I didn't even hit the brakes. I just hit it. And that's where I got that song. But one of the interesting things is, let me grip this guitar for a second. Besides that, a true story. Many of my songs are based on a true story. No cliche intended. Sometimes when you're playing the guitar, you're playing like, where's the camera? There it is. You're going E. I'm trying to remember my camera. E, there it is. E to D. Like, I want to be the man my dog thinks I am. I made the D wrong. So I played, instead of E, I played, listen up. Much different chord than I played. So out of that musical air, I got the opening lick of the song on the album, a song on my new album called "I Want to Be the Man My Dog Thinks I Am." So there's a number of ways you get inspiration, as we just stated, from a real life situation or from an air. I have guys tell me, "Oh, I'm trying to come up with this riff and all this stuff," and I when I teach a lesson, I say, throw yourself at the fretboard with some abandonment, and when there's a mistake, see if it's something you can use. You know,
Yeah, that's a
because it's
Yeah,
just because
philosophy.
it's not anything. That was an error, and that's just a beautiful way to open that song with that suspended D chord. Don't mind I saying so about my own tune.
yeah, I think artists and musicians have that, connection to source, if you want to call it, right? Like they're just
Yeah,
inspirational. It's out in the
yeah.
ether, and you just have to be tuned into it, and it's there.
The famous story on "Hey Jude," which is a song I never need to hear again in my life. I've heard it so many times, but McCartney sang. He showed it to John Lennon. He sang, "The movement you need is on your shoulder." At the end of the song, he said, "I'll change that line, John. I know it makes no sense." And Lennon said, "No, it's great. You've got to leave it in." And so that was just a mistake. Here's another mistake the Fab Four made. This I just learned this the other day. In that "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away," John Lennon's supposed to sing, "I'm feeling 2 foot tall," and he sang, "I'm feeling 2 foot small." And he thought, "Oh, that's an error," and they all said, "Keep it, keep it, keep it."
Hmm.
So just because it's one more on this same thing. Miles Davis said when you're playing a solo, there are no errors. And he would frequently make an error, and he said, "I'll play it again so people think I meant to do it." He hit
Right. I've heard
hit
that.
a dissonant note and come back to it and do the same riff again. And people go, "Ooh, that was clever." So think about that.
Right.
Your
Yeah.
note, it's such a great thing to say. He said, "When I make a mistake, I'll frequently do it a second time." And people think, "Ooh, that's clever." He's
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of the melody.
Right. Happy accidents.
Happy accidents.
I love that documentary on George Harrison too, by the way.
Yeah.
Man.
It's amazing that the sociological phenomenon of the Beatles. Just forget the music. It's going to last and last. It's just incredible. It's nuts. It's nuts, and it's just going to last and last and last.
Yeah. So you mentioned the other day you were working on a third edition of Million Dollar Bash.
Yeah, it's right over there. I have to leave the frame to get it. I've done the third edition, and I worked balls out, gentlemen, because they said we want it by the time you go on the road. So I worked like a dog on it, if you allow me to pat myself on the back. And then the publisher said just about 2 days ago, "Oh, we don't need it now. We'll get it in April when you come back from the tour." It's like, oh god.
Oh,
You
But
got
thanks.
it sold out. The first edition sold out, and the second edition, which is orange. So if you find one, get the orange one, because that's the most recent. But there will be a new one by I don't know, September or October, and there'll be the third edition of the Million Dollar Bash book, and it's got a lot of it's got about 4,500 new words that are added onto it of new information. And then I've gone through. I think there's like there's a bunch of grammatical. I've restructured some sentences, and I've thrown in some facts that people didn't know. But there's 4,500 extra words there, and so I'm very, very,
Wow.
very pleased with it. I'm really looking forward to getting it out there, and it's been a fairly high profile thing. I got to work at Dylan now is hot with this damn movie out. It's a complete
yeah.
unknown movie.
Mhm.
He's really his streaming's gone through the roof, and people are talking about him again. And it's really raised his profile up. A successful film, and I got to work in the Dylan office in the States. I'm not supposed to say where it is, but I got to work in the office. The swirl. He's got a whole staff of like, I don't know, 8 or 9 people there. And I worked 2 different weeks. I was flown over to the USA to work on the Basement Tapes books, so I had access to all the archives. So
Wow.
it was a very exciting time for me, very. And no, I've never met Bob Dylan, not yet,
Yeah.
anyway.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like I've listened to the new album a couple of times, and I hear some things in there. So I'm curious to know where you're, how you, what style you kind of adopted. Like who were your heroes or icons? Like I know that you love Graham Parsons, the Byrds. But I hear like kind of some Tom Petty, maybe even some Johnny Cash, and
Yeah,
of course
I'm
Bob
really
Dylan in there a
proud.
little bit.
There's a number of weird things I'm proud of, and one of them is that both Tom Petty and Elvis Costello were not only supportive of the Long Riders, but both of them paid to come see us play. Uh,
Really,
we,
that's
we
cool.
put each guy on the
That's
guest
awesome.
list before, and we found each guy paying to get in a gig. Petty came to see us at the Roxy once, and we were like, "Why did you know?" But he went to Will Call and got a ticket. And the weirdest is Costello came to see us play in London not that many years ago, and I know he was buying a ticket because people told me you won't believe who's in line. And when I went to the box office to tell the young lady something who was selling the tickets, he was like third in line. I could see through the glass over her shoulder, and there was the great man standing there. And he had a not a pork pie hat. He had more of a, what would you call it, a fedora like Frank Sinatra would wear. But it was him. And she said, "Yeah, we bought a ticket and came in." I said, "Well, we kind of know him. He should just let him in free." But yeah, both
How did that
guys
make
were
you
very,
feel? Was that like the moment you realized that was your kind of like a Wayne's World? I'm not worthy, or
yeah.
it'd be
Here's
cool
another
if he
Wayne.
there.
The better, here, Jared. Here's an even better Wayne's World. We were making the Two Fisted Tales album in 1986 at A&M Studios in Hollywood. And next door to us, making an album called Let Me Up, I've Had Enough, were Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So at literally 3 a.m., not near 3 a.m., at 3 a.m., maybe 3:01 a.m., I was reading the sports page of the LA Times in the commissary. And you can't see my face because I didn't, they didn't need me. And we were trying to finish this damn record. And I said, "Look, if I fall asleep, you won't be able to get me up. So I'm going to drink some coffee and read the paper." So I had the LA Times like this. And you couldn't see me. And this guy came in the commissary at A&M, and no one's there because it's 3 a.m. And he went over and got some coffee, and I didn't say anything. I figured it was one of the Long Riders. And finally, this very familiar Southern voice went, "Sid, how's it going?" And I thought, and I said, "It's going real well." And the guy said, "Hey, what I hear, I'm liking," and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Stan Lynch or Mike Campbell. He says he likes it too. And I flipped the paper down. The paper's got that crease in this on the, and I flipped it down. It was Petty.
Mhm.
I said, "How did you know it was me?" And he said, "Because you've got those boots I like." I had a pair of cowboy boots that he liked. And he said, I figured you didn't lend the boots to anybody, so I knew it was you. And I said, "Well, you're very clever." And we had a very nice conversation. He was a
That's
sweet
awesome.
guy. I can see why his passing would have deeply affected so many people. He was a really sweet guy. And it was a Wayne's World moment for me. We're not worthy, but he made you feel very at ease, just like an old buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites of all time. I mean,
He really is. And but what a sweet guy. And I'll tell you this, Benmont Tench used to live near me in LA, and that may be the nicest guy in rock and roll. I think Dave Grohl was considered one, and the other nice guy candidate was Clem Burke. I don't know if y'all know him from Blondie. He's a swell guy that just remembers your name and makes an effort. And the whole Benmont, the Heartbreakers, all that crowd, they were terrific people. Well, are terrific people.
nice. Yeah, that'd be a starstruck moment for me too, man. To meet him, behind
Yeah,
the
and then
musical.
he
Yeah,
came to
that's
see
cool.
us play a couple of times, and I went. I remember we played the Roxy in the Sunset Strip. We played there a bunch. It was kind of our version of the Whiskey. We didn't play the Whiskey that much. I don't know why. But on the Sunset Strip, we played the Roxy a bunch of times, and we played it just a few years ago. We sold it out twice in the last 5 or 6 years, and which is not that big a deal, but for me, it's a big deal. I mean, for the Fleetwood Mac, they'd be saying, "What are you doing at the Roxy?" But for us, it's great. And I remember we played the Roxy in can't remember when, early '90s or late '80s, and Petty was there. And I went out back. It was just madness at the sound check, and I went out back and we were headlining, and went out back to get a breath of fresh air. And Petty was talking to our drummer Greg Souders, and they were just standing there talking to each other like old friends. It was just, I thought, wow, what a moment!
Yeah,
What a moment!
that is crazy. Uh, so, what do you draw any inspiration from traditional country?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say our Stephen McCarthy on guitar is, besides being a massive country fan, which he brought to the band. I mean, I liked country music, but Stephen really was like having the Rosetta Stone of country music in your band. Let me put it to you this way. We backed Chris Hillman once at a charity gig. Chris Hillman is the bass player of the Byrds. He played acoustic guitar and he sang 4 of his Byrd songs, and we backed him up. And it was for a fundraiser for cancer in LA, the fight against cancer. And we did a rehearsal with Chris, and we did Have You Seen Her Face? And I can't remember what the other 3 songs were. And Chris looked at Stephen, and he looked him up and down. He said, "You are the only person, Stephen, I have ever met that plays the Clarence White licks perfectly correctly." And, I mean, Chris has played with Tony Rice. Chris has played with John Jorgensen, who's undeniably a virtuoso. Chris has played with Jeff Ross, who's a great sessioneer and virtuoso. And then Chris, of course, played with Clarence White on and off. And I almost fainted. I said, that is amazing. So from Stephen, we got the real, sort of Webb Pierce area country music thrown at us, not just the bro country of today, which we're not that into. Stephen
cool.
really, really play the Telecaster, like the B-bender, like nobody's business, like nobody. I mean,
Wow.
I can't say enough about it, but through him, he told me all these Merle Haggard songs I didn't know. I only knew sort of the big hits of Merle Haggard. I didn't know that Big City was a particularly good album. It is. I didn't know that Hag, which was earlier on, it's when he's on Capitol Records. I didn't know that Hag was quite the album it is. Stephen's the guy that said, check that one out. So, it really was great having Stephen in the band.
That's cool. It seems like
still in the band.
Yeah, it seems like a key ingredient for alt rock for sure.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
being the founder of alt rock. Yeah.
You need a guy that, I mean, I liked it, but I was coming to it. You can't see, if I can't pick my computer screen up and look. If you can look up there, there's a huge poster of Graham that I got framed, 2.5 feet by 3.5 feet. And I came into country western through Graham and Chris Hillman and that crowd. But Stephen didn't, he was country and western from the start. He's not a country rock guy. He's a country guy. In fact, there's a guy over here, a writer. He has a column in the Observer every Sunday named Stuart Lee. And he wrote the greatest thing about the Long Riders ever. He wrote just about 6 months ago. He's usually a column on politics, but for some damn reason, I know why we got thrown into it. He was using this as a metaphor. He said, the Long Riders are a band that are like the Clash. But just think of the Clash, instead of being from the city, imagine the Clash were from the farm. Then you got the Long Riders. And I thought, that's great.
Yeah.
I really like that. The Clash from the farm instead of from the city.
From the farm, yeah.
Well, yep, and we have dubbed you the High Plains Riffer, man.
I love that. Well, thank you both.
Yeah, Dominic, you are the High Plains Riffer, and I'm telling you what, it was a toss up between that and the Paisley Outlaw. I tell you,
Paisley Outlaw's not bad either.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to your music, and I was like, man, he's got a title here. He's got a title here.
I just read. Hold on, where did I put that damn book? Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Stay there, boys. I'm not.
All right. All right. Oh, Sid, man, he's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I can't find it. I've got a stack of books in there. I can't find it. There's a book here somewhere on the Bangles. What did I do? And it's just coming out March 18th on the Bangles. It's called Eternal Flame. And one thing I really like about the book is they talk about how the Bangles got together. And I wish I could find it. I'll hold it up. And in this book, Eternal Flame, all these Paisley Underground people talk about my pre-Long Riders band called The Unclaimed. And they said around 80 in LA, some of us got a little tired of just the 4-chord punk ethos. I mean, I still love punk music, punk rock deeply, but not everybody wanted to be in the Circle Jerks. So we had this band, The Unclaimed, who were vaguely Birdsian and 60s and all this stuff. And I was touched that in this Bangles book, the Rain Parade said they went to see The Unclaimed for some inspiration. The Bangles said they went to see the Unclaimed for inspiration. Steve Wynn, who has that marvelous band, the Dream Syndicate, he said he saw the Unclaimed play a bunch of times. It was inspiring. So it really made me feel great. Really made me feel great that I've had some kind of a influence with the music I've been doing with my buddies.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
It makes you feel good, because sometimes I wonder if I've just wasted everybody's time. And
Doesn't sound like it, man.
Yeah.
I think actually it was time well spent. I think it turns out it's been time well spent.
For sure. Well, I've got to ask you a question, because I ask all our musical artists this.
Go ahead.
Have you ever had an epic stage fail? You
A
like
what?
get up on stage, an epic stage fail. I started this when we had the Prince of Pop Punk, also in London, Danny Wright, on one of our episodes. Have you ever had an epic stage fail? So like, a piece of equipment fell or something, or how did you handle it?
Well, I had a list.
Situations.
I've had two. The Long Riders got so big. Here's the first story. I'll be quick for once in my life. The Long Riders were so big in Spain. We played a festival to 100,000 people, and we were the headliner that day. I.e., we weren't the headliner of the 3-day festival, but we were the headliner our day. I think it was Costello and the Attractions headlined the whole thing. But we were like the Thursday headliner, and then it was Friday, Saturday. Maybe the Friday headliner was a Saturday, Sunday. So we played to over 100,000 people in Barcelona, Spain, and it was broadcast live on national Spanish radio. So if you're in south of Spain or up by the French border, you can hear this thing live. There were microphones, these little cigarette microphones everywhere on the stage for the ambient sound to go for the broadcast. So when people applauded or whatever the hell they happened, and so I thought it was some bootleggers, because bootlegging in Europe was huge at the time. So I leaned over to one, and clear as a bell went, "Fuck," and so that went through. Everyone heard it. People in Madrid heard it, and people in Palma heard it out at sea, and the islands that they have out at sea, and people across the border in Portugal heard it. Just so I was some American going, "Fuck," really that loudly, and everyone told me later it was a great broadcast, but somebody swore in the middle of it. I don't know who it was. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah, me neither. That's crazy.
And they asked me all about it. The radio people said, what was that about? They didn't know it was me, and I didn't volunteer. I just fibbed. And the other one is I had this Les Paul. I've just taken it upstairs. I had it rewired so it has out-of-phase pickups like Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac, the early Peter Green, before they got Stevie Nicks. And to make it go out of phase, you've got to take the volume pot, the knob that turns the volume up. You've got to lift it up off the. You've got to lift it up off the surface of the guitar, and it changes the pickup's polarity. So we're killing butt at this festival. Just the last tour we did last October, we're kicking butt. Everything's going great. And Steven plays one, and I play one, and Steven plays one, and Steven signals, don't go back to singing, keep tossing the solos back and forth. So like the fourth time he tosses me the solo, I thought, oh my God, I just got this new pickup, and if you pull the knob off the surface, it shifts the polarity, and it's a little louder because it's specifically for taking solos. So I went to the lip of the stage, hit this chord, and put my hand on the knob and flipped it up, but it came off into my hand. So for a split second, I'm looking down at my guitar completely puzzled, like, Buster Keaton or Harpo Marx or something. I'm looking at my guitar like, what? And I'm holding in my hand the volume knob. Well, of course, the teenage boys that come down front to look at everything, they were just dying of laughter. They're going,
oh, yeah.
And for a second, I thought, what the hell do I do? So I shoved it in my shirt pocket and came in the solo, like, 4 bars late or whatever. And it was very embarrassing. But that's what I get for trying to act like a rock star and throw a stadium shake.
So, I mean, how do you handle it when something like that happens? Is just the show must go on, just kind of keep rolling? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was stupid. I remember Greg once got these. this is back in the 90s, the 80s. Greg got these graphite drumsticks, which are fairly common now. They don't break, right? They last forever. And so there's this big threat that we're going to have wooden drumsticks anymore. So I got these graphite drumsticks. And sometimes, you know, the stage is wood, and they've got we were playing something, and they had a really tall stage, like a high school gym kind of stage. And it was, the wooden slats weren't flush together. There was some space between them where you could, you know, get something down there. So Greg's playing with these. The guy said, "I'm giving you the first pair free, but they're really expensive. They're like $40 a stick. So if you lose these sticks, you want another stick, another set. They're $80. Oh my God, they've come down in price now. But this is so Greg's rocking out with these two graphite drumsticks, and one slips out of his hand. And I watch it as it lands by me. And while Greg's reaching over to get a wooden stick, I watched it roll, and it fell perfectly
in there
into the space between the slats, and it went, and it was just gone.
Yeah, I had a pair.
Gone.
Yeah, I had a pair of Eastons growing up, and like, yeah, that would be heartbreaking to have your graphite drumstick fall.
It was gone. We never saw it again. And after the gig, we said, "Can we get under these things and look for stuff?" And the guy said, "No, it's you know, when we tear down the stage on the last day of this festival, whatever the hell it was, we'll look for it. But no, you can't go under there. It's health and safety."
Oh, I was just saying. So you live in London now, right?
Yeah, I came over here on a tour and married a gal that's English dad, Welsh dad, and an English mama. And I thought I'd be here 5 years, and I've been here 33.
Yeah. You just love it that much, or is that much different than the U.S. or what?
Oh, it's they speak English, thank God, but it's pretty different. I mean, you know, people are a lot sort of calmer. In some ways, they're kind of duller. They're not. Their irony's really big, and you know, you would say, Jared, you'd say, "Sid, do you want to go get a sandwich?" And instead of, if an English person's not hungry, they'll say something like, "Well, I'm not entirely sure that's at the top of my list." Whereas you or I would go, "Nah, I'm not hungry." You know, so it's day to day. Even after 33 years, every once in a while somebody will say something. I just think, what did they mean? What? Huh? So there's that. So, you know, we're the American thing is say what you mean what you say, and over here you don't get a lot of direct answers. There's a lot of irony. There's a lot of inflection. It's like being in the diplomatic corps, listening to people talk over here. I'll tell you what.
High noon tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, teas at 4 o'clock, high teas at 5 o'clock, stuff like that. It's crazy.
So do you ever play down there?
Play where?
Do you play in London at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm a gigging fool. I averaged it out. I don't. Before COVID, I had these A4 papers that the booking agency always gave me. I don't know why they've stopped making them. So I have like 16 years of hard cardboard A4 pages with all the year's gigs listed on them, and I counted them up and then averaged it out, and I was a 47 gig a year man till COVID. 47 different gigs a given year, and I think last year I did 60 gigs, which for a guy that, you know, if you have a hit record. I'm just going on my reputation and ability to entertain. I don't have a Manic Monday or a what song did I mention earlier? Hey Jude, I think. I don't have one of those songs. I'm like Fugazi. I'm more like Fugazi had this reputation, so Ian MacKaye got gigs offered all around because he had a reputation. But people don't really look to them to have one hit that they want to hear. Hey, Fugazi didn't play Baby, 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 I Love You. It's not like that. So I'm more like that kind of thing. And I get offered a lot of work. I as I get older, I turn down some gigs because I can be picky. Life's been good to me. I get a lot of offers. I get hungry and not hungry. I get hungry offered, and I got Brazil offered, and I'm thinking about those. And I'm probably one of the only musicians you two will talk to that's ever played Hong Kong, and I've played it twice.
Wow. What was that like?
Crazy. Hong Kong's like Stockholm and like Venice, Italy. It's built on different islands. So, you go to Manhattan Island and that's it. And that's a lot of New York. There's Brooklyn over there. But imagine a city made up of like 5 or 6 Manhattans. That's what Hong Kong's like.
Wow.
There's all these different islands. And you say, well, I live in the city of Hong Kong. Well, let's go have a beer with Ian. Well, Ian's on a totally different island. So you've got to like get on a boat and go over there. And I think one of the islands is now hooked up to another by a tunnel or something. I don't know. But yeah, I played there twice. I'm going to Australia in January. That's how far my gigs are booked in advance. January 2026, I'm going to play Down Under. So I'm looking forward to that.
Have you played there before?
Yes. Yeah, it's unbelievable. This will probably be my last long haul flight because I am getting long in the tooth. Go that far, but I've cut it in half. I'll stop in either LA or Hong Kong and play, right? I don't want to be 22 hours on a plane anymore. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Australia is just great. They very outgoing people. The sun shines a lot. They drink a lot of beer and they love guitar music. They love guitar rock and roll. They have their own Australian folk music, which is kind of based on British Irish folk music, but they've taken it to a new space. And I love Australia. I mean, I've never been to New Zealand, which is a shame, but I love playing Australia. I'm very, very looking forward to going. I'm going to open my own show solo, and then a guy named Tim Rogers, who's in a wonderful Australian band called UMI, as in YOUAM, the letter I. He's in UMI. He is going to have an all-star band of local hip guys back me up. And believe me, it'll be a blast. It'll be a blast. Can't wait.
That's cool. You have to get somebody to do a didgeridoo for your bass lines or something.
Yeah, well, you see those gigs because it's like, what the hell is that sound? It's some guy. You know how you see a guy in the street? You see a guy in the street and they're busking, no woman, no crying, people throwing money into a hat. You're walking down the street in Melbourne, Australia, and there's this, and there's a guy with a didgeridoo, and he's got a hat, and people are throwing coins in there, and the guy's like, it's like, what the? It's just so different. It's like, huh?
Yeah, I tried playing one. I'm just not great at the circular breath thing, so I just can't keep it going.
Get it.
Guys can make it honk, but
guys can hold a note for 40 seconds and 50 seconds, forget it.
Yeah.
Wow. I told my mom she should learn how to play. She didn't like that.
So just kind of looking at your journey, I mean, in music, and then, I mean, how did you end up getting into all the documentaries and the kind of the historian stuff?
That is a good question. I think what happened was, that is a good question. I was out in LA. I went to LA to quote unquote make it. And that was the right decision because New York in the late 70s was dirty and filthy. And I played CBGBs back in the day, and it was beyond filthy. It was so dirty and gross. The people have romanticized that so much. So I went to LA, and it was better. I liked the sunshine. I liked the optimistic attitude of the people. And while I was there, I got involved with a couple of guys like the late Gary Stewart. You guys, I promise you, have records in your collection that Gary Stewart was involved in. He was a reissue guy at Rhino Records that had worked with everybody. Costello, I mentioned. He was dear friends with Elvis Costello. Gary's deceased now, sad to say. Died way too young. He's younger than me. And Gary got me work because he knew I was a writer. And I had I think the first one I did was the Graham Parsons live 1973 live album, which came out in '82. Him and Emmylou Harris on the road. Not the one that came out about a year ago. A different show from that same tour.
Mm-hmm.
Radio broadcast. So once I did that, Sam Sutherland at Billboard noticed it, thought it was a good job, and he put my name around. And because Sam Sutherland had a big name at the time, I just got more and more reissue work, and the next thing I knew, I did a bunch of reissues for Nils Lofgren, and Nils was so thrilled. I opened for him on a tour in Europe, and that was a thrill because he's an amazing guy. He has his own career, yet he's in the Crazy Horse with Neil Young, and he's in the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. Talk about a fat guy. Whoa, what a job. So, and then the next thing I knew, I was doing reissues for the Byrds and helped with so I did the box set for the Basement Tapes. I wrote the liner notes to the Basement Tapes box set
Hmm.
and helped them compile it. I mean, not compile it, but I told them where the songs were from because they had them in different order. The Basement Tapes were recorded in 3 different places, and I said you got to get them historically in the right order, and that's how it just came. I think meeting Gary Stewart at the right place when the reissue thing started to become a big deal. Here's an interesting point. As late as the late 70s, there was no rock and roll reissue program. This is before CDs, and the late Greg Shaw of Bump Records was a friend of mine. He got United Artists to put out an Eddie Cochran, a Fleetwoods, a Jan and Dean, and a Fats Domino, two LP sets, and they sold really well. And the United Artists couldn't believe it. So Harold Bronson at Rhino, he told me the early reissues they did in like 79, 80, 81, 82, the majors more or less said, just here's the tapes, when you make some money, give us this percentage. He said for the first few years, it was taking candy from a baby because the majors were interested in selling hundreds of thousands of CDs, hundreds of thousands of LPs. So much so, to continue this history lesson, that Warner Brothers around 82 or 83 famously dropped all their artists, not selling, I think it was 150,000 vinyl. And now hardly anybody sells that. It's all streaming. Sure, Springsteen does, McCartney does, but Warner Brothers would kill to have a bunch of artists who were selling hard copies of 100,000 units or more. But I just got in through the back door, and the more work I got, and then the next thing I know, I was doing this Graham Parsons documentary for the BBC 20 years ago called Graham Parsons, Fallen Angel. It's on DVD. Check it out. And then I was a talking head in about 30 of them. People call me up and say, what do you think about so-and-so, Johnny Cash? What do you think about Van Halen? Do you have a story about Prince? And so I'm in a lot of them as a talking head. Sometimes that backfires. I don't know what I said about Amy Winehouse in some DVD you can buy about Amy Winehouse, but she lived up the road. You walk to her house from my house. And I said something because I got hate mail. People found me on the internet. I don't know what I said.
Oh, no.
She was a wonderful talent. I didn't know, but woo!
Yeah. Well, I've seen you in a lot of those, and I've really enjoyed them. And that kind of explains it for me why I've seen you like in an Elvis documentary and then, George Harrison or something like that. And I just love those little documentaries.
Ian, they pay me. And I do it for free for my friends. There's a marvelous one on Gene Clark of the Byrds called Gene Clark, The Bird Who Wouldn't Fly. And it's a terrific documentary. I'm a talking head in that just to help them out free. Sometimes I get paid. It's just, you want to give me $300 to sit in a chair and talk about rock and roll for a half hour? No problem.
Right.
And you can do like 4 of them in a day. So it's like, that's my week. Thanks. I don't need to work the rest of the week. Thank you.
Right. So in some of your books, you've written pretty extensively about Graham Parsons, right? So what drew you to his music, and then how has his legacy impacted your own songwriting and your performing?
Well, the Graham thing really I don't know why his music, the first Graham I heard was the Sweetheart of the Rodeo album, and I loved it. That was, although now I look back and I don't think it's that great an album, Jared, but I at the time I thought it was Godhead. Then I didn't know real country and western albums like Hag, the one I mentioned by Merle earlier. I didn't know the real stuff. But Graham just spoke to me. I thought his songs were good. I thought his singing was terrific. And then when I found out his horrible story, right when I really got into Graham, he died. And I was at university. I was at the University of South Carolina, and I was walking across the campus. It was my freshman year. I'd only been there like a month. And in those days, you all will remember they had the newspaper that you put the money in the slot, and then it would release the thing. And
right, you open up the thing and pull the newspaper out.
Yeah, and of course, people would take out 2 or 3, but honor system was supposed to take out 1. So I
never did that.
I put in the 15 cents, and I could see because I could see in a distance. There's Graham on the front page in the upper right-hand corner, and I knew he must be dead. And I was right, so I bought the paper, and he was dead. And it just right when I got into Graham, he died. Right when I was really, I knew about him for the years before. Right when I really got into Gilded Palace, I was listening to him every day. He died, and the more I investigated about him, the more I realized what a story. If you see the DVD I made called with Gandalf Henning, a German producer, called Graham Parsons' Fallen Angel. You can buy it on Amazon.
I'll check it out.
You'll understand. It's such a great story. I mean, it's such a horrible story, but such a compelling
Mhm.
story. So unlike everyone else, like Leadbelly or Tom Petty, it's a poverty to riches story. Graham's
Mhm.
story is almost the other way around. He was born rich.
Wow.
I mean, he was born rich.
Mhm.
They had citrus farms in Florida. Trust funds, citrus farms. They were loaded, loaded. And the more I got into his story, the sadder it was. People like Chris Hillman and Roger McGuinn, they needed the money when the Byrds broke big. Gene Clark was a farm boy. He needed the money when the Byrds broke big. It was a big deal for guys like that to have money, their own
Right.
money. Whereas Graham had a trust fund. If the Byrds or the Burritos didn't take off, he's cool.
Right. I'm good.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
In fact, but frankly, as long as we're just yakking, it's like old friends. One thing I feel held back the Burritos. This is heresy to a lot of people, but Graham didn't need the Burritos to work a lot. So they'd
Right.
get an offer to go play Seattle, or they get an offer to go play Moscow, Idaho, or they get an offer to play some gigs in the upper Midwest. And Graham wouldn't be into it because he didn't need the money. Whereas guys
Mhm.
like Bernie Ledman, when we interviewed, he admitted, I needed the burritos to work, to eat and buy groceries.
Right.
And Graham was the most enthusiastic about that. He was like, if it strikes my fancy, I'll go. Well, it doesn't work like that. Arthur Lee of Love was the same way. Arthur Lee and Love had such a great band in the 60s, but they didn't want to leave LA. Arthur was just, he was happy in LA being the cock of the walk.
Yeah. So another question, so kind of around like the evolution of the music industry. So like when you started, right, it's kind of LPs, records, right, radio. Then you've seen it all from that into CDs, and now with streaming and social media. Do you think that's changed the way artists make and share their music today?
Well, in the old days, I'd have parents say, "Will you speak to my son or little girl? They want to get in the music industry." And I would basically tell them, the parent, and I would tell the child, if that kid wants to play music for a living and really wants it, there's nothing you can do to stop them. You can take me aside and say, Sid, tell them not to do it. It's going to break my heart. It won't work. You could have
Right.
told me, my parents tried everything in their Kentucky hearts to get me to not go to California, but I was going to go, and I've had a wonderful life, gentlemen. But now, I hate to say it, I wouldn't be in a hurry for my daughter, who's a marvelous musician, to be a musician because it's just terrible now. I mean, the old days you could make some money by it, and
Right.
now it's streaming, and I get, as is normal for not famous people, I get ready for this. I get 1/13th of one English penny for each stream on Spotify. Let me
Right.
repeat that. My bands, be it the Long Riders or me solo or the Bluegrass band, the Cole Porters, COAL Porters, we get, if you stream one of our songs, boys, 1/13th of an English penny for that stream. So I had a song called Charlene, written about the Texas lead singer, Charlene Spiteri. It did 400,000 streams one month. And when my note came in, I saw that. I thought, well, that's got to be some money. It was 22 quid. 22 quid
That's
for
ridiculous.
400,000 plays.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's bad. It's bad, guys. It's bad. There's no
They-
spin put on that.
yeah, because I mean, you don't really see things about CDs or record sales or anything anymore because it's all online streaming. So,
No.
do you think a lot of artists just don't make that much money and it's a kind of like live
Well,
front
you have
portrayal
to,
that they are?
in answer to your question, you have to tour. And the other thing that people hope for now, which is crazy, is they want a blue jeans commercial. They
Oh,
want a
right,
car
sponsors.
commercial.
Yeah.
They want a peanut butter commercial because you can
Yeah.
make money with the commercial. Well, I mean, the Long Riders did a beer commercial, but I'm not in this business to make beer commercials or peanut butter commercials. I mean, I
Right.
want to have I want to have an album out. And people say the third song on side two was great or whatever, and those days are over and they ain't coming back. That streaming is just killing it, killing it.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that's why you start hearing a lot of music that's just kind of all the same. Like
Yeah, I
whatever's
do.
popular, you have like 17 artists that just kind of release the same stuff.
I couldn't agree more, and I just think there's a lot of clever people that are out there that are going to go. I don't think music's my avenue. I'll stick with painting. I'll stick with being a playwright. I'll try and write a novel. Maybe I'll be an actor. But this whole idea of music, I mean, I'm not expecting or even thinking I'm going to have gold records or platinum records, but it's just forget it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a struggle. So you have to play live. You have to. I mean, a lot to make any living.
Right. Big tours. That's the way,
Yeah.
because I think
Frequent tours, frequent.
right, because it's like, like the Taylor Swift tour, she made like $1 billion or whatever it was, right?
Yeah,
A
crazy.
lot of money. And that's probably the way she makes money, besides sponsors, because she's pretty popular there too. But yeah, I never really thought about it. You listen to all this music on Spotify, and sometimes I've thought about, these guys actually make money when I stream their songs?
Well, it's like Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam sold millions of copies, and all of a sudden, streaming's the thing. And Pearl
Mhm.
Jam, I'm telling you, their hard copy sales are like, eh. I mean, they're better than mine, sure, but they don't make any money. I think that's why you have people like Pearl Jam release a live album of every show they do. I think that's very wise.
Yeah.
They have, sometimes they'll put them on one of those sticks, and you can buy it after the show. You can buy it within like half an hour of them leaving the stage. You can buy the
Wow.
little stick that goes in the back of your computer. Is USB? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why you've got to get around not selling records. Another one is I encourage people if they go see a band. Let's say they go see the Jared Ian Blues Band.
Hmm.
Buy the T-shirt, folks. Buy the T-shirt.
Merch. Yeah.
If they're saying, yeah, merch. If they got bumper stickers at the Fugazi, well, Fugazi don't exist, but you know what I mean. If
Right.
they got bumper stickers at the Oasis, well, Oasis, that's a terrible thing. They're they're breadheads. They're the Killers or the Kaiser Chiefs or who does Sex on Fire?
Kings
Kings
of
of
Leon.
Leon.
Yeah.
Go to Kings of Leon. If you really want to help them, don't just buy a ticket, buy a T-shirt. And the
Right.
band at the corner of your street that's playing the tavern in Kentucky or whatever, if they have a little homemade CD or whatever, buy it. That helps. That really helps.
So we want to try something new. Jared's got a few questions for you as we close out.
Okay.
And I don't want to give it all away because this is an awesome idea that Jared has.
All right.
He may ask you a question or two that for the next guest that's going to come on, and we're not going to tell you who it is.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
Jared,
So on the podcast, I was thinking, how we can make it more engaging and get the same kind of answers from our guests and,
Okay.
entertain our listeners a little more. So I come up with 5 questions that I'll ask every guest from now until we quit doing this. But, so what is your favorite movie of all time?
You're not going to believe this, but I may go with A Hard Day's Night, and the reason is it's so inspiring. It not only captures a certain it's a low budget black and white film that captures a certain moment in Britain as much as Billy Liar does, or as much as Saturday Night and Sunday Morning does. A Hard Day's Night, and I also feel that opening bing that starts A Hard Day's Night, the song and the movie. I feel that's where the 60s really starts, that chord going bing.
Mm-hmm.
So people want me to say like How the West Was Won or Sundays in Seville or Dances with Wolves. But I might have to say A Hard Day's Night. It really blew my mind.
that's a
And
good
it's
choice.
such a great example of cinema, even if you take the idea of the Fab Four out of it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I don't know if you were young enough, but if you've watched cartoons at all,
Sure.
what was your favorite cartoon?
I would say Quick Straw McGraw with his friend Babaroo. I also like Huckleberry Hound. Do y'all know Huckleberry Hound?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huckleberry Hound was awesome, and he had a sidekick called Vincent Van Gogh, who was a painter, and the gopher was obviously Vincent Van Gogh, a play on words.
Right.
And Vince had bad eyesight, so he squinted all the time, and he wore a beret. And the whole idea of it's funny that a hound dog has a tie on, But a
Right.
gopher with a beret, because he's a painter, and he's called Vincent Van Gopher. That's just awesome. Awesome.
That is awesome. All right. What's one thing that you think people should know about you that maybe they don't already?
Ooh, this is a good one. That is a
Yeah.
wicked one.
That is a good one.
Mhm.
I would, this is vanity, I guess, but I would like people to know, seriously, that I am a key founding father or foundation stone in the entire building we call Americana.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
No one was playing, well, Americana existed before the Long Riders, but when we started, no one said alt country or Americana. And when we finished and broke up the first time, everyone said those phrases.
Yeah. All right. What advice would you give your teenage self today?
To not doubt yourself so damn much and to follow your heart. I know that sounds corny. I would tell the teenage Sid Griffin, don't doubt yourself so much, follow your heart.
Awesome.
A slightly longer version of that is I had a lot of people in Kentucky, some of my friends, some of my parents' friends say, don't go to California. You can't do this. You'll never do this. I'm so
Mhm.
glad I didn't listen to them. Jared, I'm so glad I didn't listen to them. Follow your
Yeah, I
heart.
think the rest of the world
No,
is too, man.
I'll put it this way. Mark Twain said, or wrote actually, if you do for a living what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yep. That is a great quote. All right. So last question. So
Amen.
what
Good.
is a
These are good.
question? What is a question you want to ask our following guest? It can be any question. So this is, what
Are you,
like when did the first time you had sex? Doesn't matter, right?
question, I know what it is. The question is, I'm assuming they're an artist of some kind.
Maybe.
I'll
We'll
give you a
see.
hint. There. Can we do that, Jared? Do you want to give him a hint?
Sure.
Well, I wanted to say, if you're a painter, a sculptor, a writer, an actor, a musician, and I'm not saying everybody on your show is, because I looked at some of the people you had on, I know they're not. But
Mhm.
are you happy with what you've done in life? And I suppose you could ask that of anybody. But are you happy with what you've done in life? Because when I look back now, I had a few people die early this year. It's just horrible at my age. I'm 69 years old. But I think if I went tomorrow, heaven forbid, I am happy with what I've done in my life. I like the
Mhm.
way I've lived, and I like my art that I've turned out. And I like the idea that my daughter and my son can one day, 30 years from now, hear one of my tunes. So I would ask that person next on the show, are you happy with what you've done in life? And if you're an artist, are you happy with the art you did? Did you like your paintings? Did you like are you proud of the play you wrote?
Right. Awesome
Those
question.
are good questions, by the way. That's very clever.
It took me a while to think them up.
I'm sure our next guest will appreciate it for sure. Well,
Okay.
Sid, thank you so much for being with us here on episode 18 of Common X Podcast. Keep in touch, buddy. We'd love to have you back. Let us know how the tour goes.
I wish we were coming west of the Mississippi, but maybe some other time. Mrs. Griffin lets me go out for about 3.5 weeks and then likes me coming back home for a while. But I hope to see you guys face to face sometime. I've really
Yeah,
enjoyed
that'd be great. If you're ever
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed this.
So, yeah, hey, thanks for coming on. And everybody go out and get The Journey from Grape to Raisin. It's out now. It's a beautiful album. So pick it up.
Yeah, buy it.
Thanks,
Don't
guys.
stream it. So you can
That's
actually
right.
get
Buy it.
good
Don't
money.
stream it.
Buy
Get that turquoise vinyl. I tell you what.
And buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, there we go.
Sure.
Get some of that merch. All right, thanks, Sid.
Bye, gentlemen.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week. And hopefully from, content that you guys want to see. So reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.